Elena Thompson stood in front of her bathroom mirror at 3 o'clock in the morning, staring at the dark purple bruise spreading across her left cheekbone. Her hands gripped the edge of the marble sink so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She wasn't crying. That's what surprised her most. After 9 years of marriage, after countless incidents she had explained away, after so many times she had convinced herself things would get better, Elena Thompson had finally run out of tears. What Marcus Thompson didn't know, as he lay passed out drunk in their king-sized bed down the hall, was that this would be the last time he ever laid hands on his wife. He didn't know that the woman staring at her bruised reflection wasn't planning her apology or figuring out how to cover the evidence with makeup. She was planning something far more permanent, far more devastating, and infinitely more satisfying. But let's go back 6 hours, to when Elena's world shattered for the final time. It was a Saturday evening in their beautiful 3-bedroom house in the suburbs of Minneapolis. Elena had spent the afternoon preparing for the next day's family breakfast, a monthly tradition where Marcus's entire family gathered at their home. She was a pastry chef by profession, owning a small but successful catering business that specialized in high-end events for Minneapolis's elite social circles. Cooking was her passion, her escape, and the one thing in her life that Marcus hadn't completely poisoned. She had been arranging fresh flowers in a vase when she heard Marcus's truck pull into the driveway at 7:15. He was supposed to be home by 6. She had texted him twice asking when he'd be back, receiving no response. The dinner she had prepared, his favorite pot roast with roasted vegetables, sat waiting on the stove, slowly drying out. Marcus stumbled through the front door, and Elena knew immediately he'd been drinking. She could tell by the way he moved, the glazed look in his eyes, the aggressive set of his shoulders. This wasn't the first time, and she had learned to read the warning signs. But there was something different this time, something more volatile in his energy. "Where's dinner?" he demanded, throwing his keys on the hallway table with enough force that they skittered across the surface and fell to the floor. "It's ready," Elena replied carefully, keeping her voice neutral. "I made your favorite. I was just waiting for you to get home." "Waiting for me?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean judging me for being late? I can see it on your face, Elena. That disappointed look you always have." "I'm not judging you, Marcus. I just asked what time you'd be home, so I could time dinner properly." "There you go again," he said, moving into the kitchen where Elena stood near the stove. "Always trying to control everything. Always trying to manage me like I'm one of your catering events." Elena had heard this script before. When Marcus drank, he became someone else entirely. The charming man she had married, the successful construction project manager who worked for his father's company, disappeared. In his place was someone angry, someone cruel, someone who needed to blame everyone else for his problems. "Dinner's ready whenever you want it," she said quietly, trying to de-escalate the situation like she always did. But Marcus wasn't done. He opened the refrigerator, looking for something, then slammed it shut. "This house is a mess. You're home all day and you can't even keep things organized." The house wasn't a mess. Elena kept it immaculate. But contradicting Marcus when he was in this state only made things worse. She had learned that lesson the hard way over the years. "I'll clean up after dinner," she offered. "You'll clean up now," Marcus said, his voice rising. He grabbed a plate from the counter, one of the good china plates Elena's grandmother had given them, and threw it against the kitchen wall. It shattered into dozens of pieces, scattering across the tile floor. Elena flinched but didn't move. Her heart was racing, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Marcus, please, let's just have dinner and talk about this." "I don't want to talk," he shouted. "I'm sick of talking. I'm sick of you looking at me like I'm a failure. I'm sick of you thinking you're better than me because you have your little baking business. I don't think I'm better than you." "Yes, you do. You and your perfect little world. Your successful business. Your social circle. Meanwhile, I'm working my ass off at my father's company, and what do I get? Criticism. Pressure. Everyone expecting me to be perfect." Marcus moved closer to her, and Elena instinctively stepped back. That's when she saw his hand move, faster than she expected. He grabbed her face, his fingers digging into her cheek with brutal force. "You don't get to look down on me," he hissed, his face inches from hers. "You don't get to judge me. Without me, you'd be nothing. You understand that? Nothing." The pain was sharp and immediate, but it was the humiliation that cut deeper. This was who her husband had become. This was what her marriage had turned into. Marcus released her face with a shove that sent her stumbling backward against the counter. He looked at her with disgust, then turned and walked away. "Clean up this mess," he called over his shoulder. "And don't wait up. I'm going to bed." Elena stood in the kitchen, her cheek throbbing, surrounded by broken china, and listened to Marcus climb the stairs. She heard the bedroom door slam. She heard him moving around upstairs. Then, eventually, silence. That's when something inside Elena broke. Not her spirit, her illusions. All the excuses she had made for Marcus over the years, all the times she had convinced herself he would change, all the moments she had blamed herself for his anger, they all shattered just like that china plate. She carefully swept up the broken pieces, her movements mechanical and precise. She put the dinner away, turned off the stove, and washed the dishes. She moved through her home like a ghost, completing tasks while her mind raced with a clarity she hadn't experienced in years. At midnight, she checked on Marcus. He was passed out on top of the covers, fully clothed, snoring loudly. The smell of alcohol radiated from him. Elena stood in the doorway of what used to be their bedroom, looking at the man she had promised to love for better or worse. She had endured the worse. It was time for something better. She went to the home office, the small room where she managed her catering business and handled their household finances. She opened her laptop and logged into their joint bank accounts, something she hadn't done in months. Marcus always said he was handling their finances, that she should focus on her business and he'd take care of everything else. What Elena discovered in the next hour made her bruised face seem like a minor injury in comparison. Their savings account, which should have had at least $50,000 from her business profits over the past 2 years, had $47,000 missing. Just $3,000 remained. Elena clicked through transaction after transaction, her hand shaking as she used the mouse. Transfers to online gambling websites. Hundreds of them. Some for $50, some for $500, some for over $1,000. Month after month, Marcus had been systematically draining their savings to feed a gambling addiction she hadn't known existed. But that wasn't all. Elena discovered credit cards she didn't know about, opened in both their names. Marcus had used her social security number, her income, her credit to open 5 different credit cards, and they were all maxed out. $38,000 in debt that Elena had never authorized, never knew about, never benefited from. Her credit score, which she had spent years building, had been destroyed. All those late payments Marcus claimed he was handling were actually never being paid. Her perfect credit was now in ruins. Elena kept digging, and the betrayal went deeper. She found emails Marcus had forgotten to delete, correspondence with his father's company accountant about discrepancies in project budgets. She found invoice records that didn't match. She found check numbers that were out of sequence. Marcus had been embezzling from Thompson Construction, the family business his father had built over 30 years. $23,000 stolen through fake invoices, altered checks, and fraudulent expense reports. Marcus was stealing from his own father, a man who had trusted him completely. At 2 in the morning, Elena found the dating apps on the cloud backup of Marcus's phone. He had been careless, never realizing their phones backed up to the same cloud account. She saw messages with multiple women, flirtatious conversations, promises of dinner, plans to meet. But one woman stood out, Sasha Martinez. The messages with Sasha went back 8 months. Marcus had told her he was divorced, that his ex-wife was controlling and had taken everything in the divorce settlement. He told Sasha he was a successful investor, that he owned his own construction company, that he was financially secure. He promised her they would buy a house together, that they would travel the world, that she was the love of his life. Every word was a lie. Every promise was made with stolen money. Every plan was built on the foundation of his marriage to Elena. At 3 in the morning, Elena took photos of her bruised face from multiple angles. She searched through her phone and found photos from 6 months earlier. A bruise on her arm she had explained to her friends as clumsiness. Another photo from a year ago, a mark on her shoulder she had covered with makeup. She had been documenting her own abuse without even realizing it. She remembered the audio recording app she had installed on her phone last month after a particularly bad argument. She had been scared that night, scared enough to want evidence if something terrible happened. The app automatically recorded when it detected raised voices. Elena opened it and found last night's argument recorded in full. Marcus's threats, his degradation, the sound of the plate shattering, his violent words, all captured in perfect clarity. At 3:30 in the morning, Elena made a phone call. Diana Reeves answered on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Elena? What's wrong? It's 3:30 in the morning." "I need a lawyer," Elena said, her voice steady and cold. "And I need you to tell me I'm not crazy for what I'm about to do." Diana was Elena's closest friend from college, a criminal defense attorney who had built a successful practice in Minneapolis. She was also the one person who had consistently questioned Elena's marriage, who had gently suggested that Marcus's behavior wasn't normal, wasn't acceptable. "What happened?" Diana asked, suddenly alert. Elena told her everything. The violence, the bruise, the financial devastation, the embezzlement, the affair. She spoke for 20 minutes without stopping, laying out the complete picture of her destroyed marriage. When she finished, Diana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Leave now. Pack a bag, come to my house, and I'll file for an emergency restraining order first thing in the morning." "No," Elena said. "I have a better idea." "Elena, domestic violence situations are dangerous. You need to get out of that house." "I will, but not yet. Marcus's entire family is coming here for breakfast in 9 hours. His parents, his brothers and their wives, his boss from the company. They all come here every month for Sunday breakfast. It's tradition. And you want to cancel it and leave before they arrive," Diana said. "No," Elena replied. "I want to serve breakfast exactly as planned. But I'm going to serve Marcus something he's not expecting." There was another pause. Then Diana said slowly, "What are you planning?" "I'm planning to make sure everyone who enables Marcus, everyone who makes excuses for him, everyone who benefits from the lie of his perfect life, I'm going to make sure they all see the truth at the same time. I want his parents to know their son is an abuser and a thief. I want his brothers to know what kind of man they defend. I want his boss to know about the embezzlement. And I want it all to happen in my home, at my table, over a breakfast I prepared." "Elena, that's risky. Confronting an abuser publicly can be dangerous. He made it public when he left a bruise people can see. He made it public when he stole from a family business. He made it public when he paraded his girlfriend around town while married to me. I'm just making sure people actually see what's been public all along." Diana was quiet again, and Elena could practically hear her friend's mind working through the legal and personal implications. "Okay," Diana said finally, "but we do this smart. I'm preparing emergency divorce papers tonight. I'm filing for a restraining order based on the evidence you have. I'm documenting everything, and I'm calling in some favors." "What kind of favors?" "You said Marcus's father's accountant has been investigating discrepancies?" "Yes, I found emails about it." "What's the accountant's name?" "Robert Chun." "Why?" "Because Robert Chun was 2 years behind me in law school. We've kept in touch. I'm going to call him and explain the situation. If Thompson Construction is investigating Marcus for embezzlement, they need to know the full scope of what he's done." Over the next 4 hours, Elena and Diana orchestrated what Elena would later call the most important event she ever catered. They worked through the phone, planning every detail with the precision of a military operation. Diana contacted Robert Chun, who confirmed that Thompson Construction had been investigating Marcus for 3 months. Nearly $23,000 was missing, and while they suspected Marcus, they hadn't wanted to accuse him without proof. The family wanted to handle it quietly, avoid embarrassment. Robert agreed to prepare a detailed financial report and bring it to the breakfast. Elena made another call, this one more difficult. She contacted Sasha Martinez through the dating app, posing as Marcus's sister Rachel. She claimed there was a family emergency and asked if Sasha could come to a family gathering at Marcus's home address the next morning. Sasha, concerned and wanting to support the man she loved, immediately agreed. Diana called her investigator friend who specialized in domestic violence cases. He agreed to be nearby during the breakfast, ready to document everything and ensure Elena's safety. At 7 in the morning, Marcus finally woke up. Elena heard him moving around upstairs, heard the shower running. She was in the kitchen, having already been awake for 4 hours, preparing the most elaborate breakfast she had ever made. The dining room table was set with their finest china, crystal glasses, fresh flowers, linen napkins. She had prepared a spread that would have impressed her most demanding catering clients. Homemade croissants, 3 types of quiche, fresh fruit arranged artistically, smoked salmon with all the accompaniments, her famous cinnamon rolls that had won awards, fresh squeezed orange juice, gourmet coffee, and a selection of pastries that showcased her skills. It looked like a celebration. It looked like love made visible through food. It looked perfect. Marcus came downstairs at 8, looking rough but functional. He had showered, shaved, and dressed in his usual Sunday casual clothes, expensive jeans and a polo shirt. He walked into the kitchen and stopped, staring at the breakfast preparation in surprise. "What's all this?" he asked. "Family breakfast is today," Elena replied, not looking at him. "I wanted to make it special." Marcus looked at her face, seeing the bruise for the first time in daylight. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. Maybe shame, maybe fear, but it passed quickly. "What happened to your face?" he asked, as if he genuinely didn't know. "You don't remember?" Elena's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "You must have bumped into something. You're always so clumsy." He moved to pour himself coffee, already rewriting history, already gaslighting her into questioning her own memory. But Elena was done questioning herself. "Yes," she said quietly. "I must have bumped into something." Marcus relaxed, satisfied that the incident was being swept under the rug like all the others. "This breakfast looks amazing. My family's going to love it." "I hope so," Elena said. "I put everything into it." At 11:30, the doorbell began ringing. Marcus's family arrived in their usual order. First his parents, Eleanor and Frank Thompson. Eleanor was a refined woman in her 60s who had spent 40 years as a corporate attorney before retirement. Frank was a self-made man who had built Thompson Construction from a one-truck operation into a multimillion-dollar business. Then came Marcus's older brother Jason with his wife Amy. Jason was a surgeon, successful and confident. Amy was a school principal, sharp and observant. Finally, Marcus's younger brother Derek arrived with his wife Nicole. Derek was a financial advisor, and Nicole worked in marketing. The family gathered in the living room, making small talk while Elena finished the breakfast preparations. Marcus played the role of the perfect host, laughing and joking with his brothers, kissing his mother's cheek, shaking his father's hand with the grip of a man who had nothing to hide. At 11:45, the doorbell rang again. Marcus, who was closest to the door, opened it without thinking. Sasha Martinez stood on the doorstep, looking beautiful and nervous. She was dressed nicely, holding a bottle of wine, clearly trying to make a good impression on what she thought was her boyfriend's family. "Sasha?" Marcus's face went white. "What are you doing here?" "Your sister Rachel called me," Sasha said, confused by his reaction. "She said there was a family gathering and that I should come surprise you." From the kitchen doorway, Elena spoke clearly. "I called her, Marcus. I thought she should be here. After all, you've been promising her a future. She deserves to meet the family she'd be marrying into." The living room went silent. Every person turned to look at Elena, then at Marcus, then at Sasha. "I don't understand," Sasha said. "Who's Rachel? Why did you say you called me?" Eleanor stood up from the couch. "Marcus, who is this woman?" Before Marcus could answer, Elena walked into the living room. "Everyone, please come to the dining room. Breakfast is ready, and we have a lot to discuss." The family moved toward the dining room in confused silence. Sasha followed, still not understanding what was happening. Marcus looked like he might be sick, but he had no choice but to follow his family. As everyone found their seats, Elena had arranged the seating chart strategically. Marcus at the head of the table, his parents on either side, his brothers and their wives spread around, and Sasha placed directly across from Marcus where he couldn't avoid seeing her. One more person arrived just as everyone was sitting down. Robert Chen, the company accountant, let himself in through the front door with the spare key he'd been given years ago for business emergencies. Robert. Frank looked surprised. I didn't know you were coming to breakfast. Elena invited me, Robert said, his face serious. I have some information about the company that you all need to hear. The table was set. The breakfast was served. Everyone had full plates of food that no one was eating. The tension in the room was palpable. Eleanor looked at Elena's face, really looked at it for the first time. Elena, dear, what happened to your cheek? That's a terrible bruise. Elena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the sideboard and picked up her phone. Before we eat, I think everyone needs to understand why we're really here today. Elena, what are you doing? Marcus's voice cracked with panic. I'm making sure everyone sees the truth, Marcus. You made me serve you breakfast every Sunday for 9 years. This is the last breakfast I'll ever make for you, so I want it to be memorable. She played the audio recording from the night before. Marcus's voice filled the dining room, slurred with alcohol and sharp with rage. His threats, his insults, the sound of breaking china, his declaration that Elena was worthless without him. All of it recorded in perfect clarity. Eleanor gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Frank's face turned red with anger. Jason and Derek exchanged horrified looks with their wives. Sasha sat frozen, beginning to understand that something was terribly wrong. When the recording ended, Elena removed the light makeup she had applied to her bruise that morning. The full extent of the damage became visible, dark purple spreading across her cheekbone, the clear impression of fingers where Marcus had grabbed her face. This is what your son did to me last night, Elena said to Eleanor and Frank. This isn't the first time. It's just the worst time, and the last time. Elena, I can explain, Marcus started, but his mother cut him off. Explain. Eleanor's voice shook. Explain how you put your hands on your wife? How you spoke to her like that? I raised you better than this, Marcus. Your father and I taught you better than this. She's exaggerating, Marcus tried desperately. She fell. The recording is taken out of context. I didn't fall, Elena said calmly. And there's no context that makes what you did acceptable. But the violence is only part of what you all need to know. She distributed printed packets around the table, one for each person. Inside were bank statements, credit card bills, transaction records, all carefully organized and highlighted. While Marcus was calling me worthless, Elena continued, he was systematically stealing from me. $47,000 from our joint savings account, gone to online gambling websites. $38,000 in credit card debt opened in my name without my knowledge. My credit score destroyed. My financial security demolished. Frank was flipping through the documents, his face growing darker with each page. Marcus, is this true? Have you been gambling away your wife's money? It's our money, Marcus said weakly. I was going to pay it back. With what money? Elena asked. The money you were stealing from your father's company? Every head turned to look at Robert Chun, who opened his briefcase and pulled out his own set of documents. I've been investigating financial discrepancies at Thompson Construction for 3 months, Robert said. Marcus has been submitting fraudulent invoices, altering checks, and falsifying expense reports. The total amount stolen is $23,000. Frank stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. You stole from the family business? You stole from the company I built? The company I was planning to leave to you and your brothers. Dad, I can explain. I needed the money for investments, for opportunities. I was going to pay it all back. You were going to pay it back with gambling winnings? Derek's voice was sharp with sarcasm. Because based on these bank statements, you haven't won anything. You've just lost more and more. This is insane, Marcus said, standing up and pointing at Elena. You planned this. You set me up. You invited all these people here to humiliate me. I invited all these people here to show them who you really are, Elena replied. You've been lying to everyone, Marcus. Your parents think you're a responsible project manager. Your brothers think you're successful. The company thinks you're trustworthy. But you're none of those things. Sasha finally found her voice. Marcus, I don't understand what's happening. Who is this woman? Why is she talking about your wife? Elena turned to Sasha with genuine sympathy in her eyes. I am his wife, Sasha. We've been married for 9 years. We're not divorced, not separated. Very much married. Sasha's face went white. But you told me you were divorced. You said your ex-wife was controlling, that she took everything in the divorce settlement, that you'd been separated for 2 years. I've never been divorced, Elena said gently. I'm sorry, Sasha. You're not the villain here. You're another victim of Marcus's lies. Elena pulled out printed screenshots of Marcus's dating app messages with Sasha. The promises of buying a house together, the declarations of love, the future they were planning. She also showed messages with 3 other women Marcus had been seeing. Every promise he made to you was funded with money he stole from me, Elena explained. The dinners, the gifts, the plans for a house, all of it paid for with money from our joint account or from credit cards he opened in my name. Sasha stood up, tears streaming down her face. You're married. You lied to me for 8 months. Every date, every conversation, every plan we made was a lie. She grabbed her glass of water and threw it in Marcus's face. I thought I was building a future with you. I thought you were honest, successful, free. You're none of those things. You're a liar and a fraud. Sasha grabbed her purse and headed for the door, but Eleanor stopped her. My dear, I am so sorry for what my son put you through. You deserve better than this. After Sasha left, the family sat in stunned silence. Marcus was drenched with water, his carefully constructed image completely destroyed. He looked around the table at his family, seeing disgust, anger, and disappointment on every face. Marcus, Frank said quietly, his voice heavy with pain. You're fired from Thompson Construction, effective immediately. Robert will be filing charges for embezzlement. I'm not protecting you from this. Dad, please, Marcus begged. It's the family business. Don't do this. You should have thought about that before you stole from your family. You're not just fired, you're disowned. I won't have a thief and an abuser representing the Thompson name. Eleanor was crying silently, but her voice was firm when she spoke. I can't believe I raised someone capable of this. Hitting your wife, stealing from your father, lying to everyone who loves you. You need help, Marcus. Serious help. Jason and Derek both stood up. We're done making excuses for you, Jason said. We've covered for your drinking, your temper, your irresponsibility for years. We told ourselves you'd grow out of it. But this is beyond anything we imagined. Amy and Nicole moved to stand beside Elena. Is there anything we can do to help you? Amy asked. Do you need a place to stay? Legal referrals? Anything? I have a lawyer, Elena said, pulling out another document. Diana Reeves has been preparing paperwork all night. She slid divorce papers across the table to Marcus. They landed in front of him with a finality that seemed to echo in the silent room. I'm filing for divorce on grounds of domestic violence, financial fraud, and adultery. The restraining order is already approved and will be served to you today. You're not allowed to contact me, come to my home, or approach my business. You can't kick me out of my own house, Marcus said desperately. It's not your house. It's in my name only. I bought it with money from my business before we got married. You have no legal claim to it. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. Elena opened it to find 2 police officers standing on her porch. Mrs. Thompson, we received a report of domestic violence. We're here to take a statement and serve a restraining order. Marcus's face went from pale to green. Elena, don't do this. We can work this out. I'll get help. I'll pay the money back. Just don't do this in front of everyone. You did this in front of everyone when you left bruises people can see. You did this in front of everyone when you stole from a family business. You did this in front of everyone when you flaunted your girlfriend around town. I'm just making sure everyone actually sees it. The police officers entered the dining room, taking in the scene. The elaborate breakfast, the stunned family, the destroyed man at the head of the table. Sir, we need you to come with us to the station to answer questions about domestic violence and possible fraud charges. Frank spoke up. Officers, I'm Frank Thompson, owner of Thompson Construction. I'm also pressing charges against my son for embezzlement of company funds. My accountant has all the documentation. Robert handed over his carefully prepared files. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Marcus was led away in handcuffs, still wearing his Sunday polo shirt, still trying to maintain some shred of dignity. As the police car pulled away from the house, Elena stood in the doorway with Marcus's entire family behind her. I'm sorry you all had to see that, Elena said quietly, but I needed you to understand the truth. Don't apologize, Eleanor said firmly. You did the right thing. We should have seen the signs. We should have protected you. You couldn't have known. Marcus is very good at lying. The family stayed for another hour, not to eat the breakfast that had grown cold, but to support Elena. They shared stories of warning signs they had ignored, moments when Marcus's temper had flared but been explained away, incidents they should have questioned. Frank promised Elena would get every penny back from the embezzlement prosecution. Eleanor gave her the name of the best divorce attorney in Minneapolis. Jason and Derek offered to help move Marcus's belongings out of the house. Amy and Nicole promised to support her through the divorce proceedings. As the family finally left, Elena stood alone in her dining room, looking at the untouched breakfast spread she had spent hours preparing. All that work, all that food, and no one had eaten a bite. But it didn't matter. The breakfast wasn't really about the food. It was about serving Marcus the truth, giving him a taste of consequences, and making sure everyone who had enabled him finally saw what he really was. The next few weeks moved quickly. Marcus was charged with domestic violence, embezzlement, and multiple counts of fraud. The gambling debts caught up with him, and credit card companies filed lawsuits for the fraudulent accounts. His bail was set at $50,000, money he couldn't access because all their joint accounts were frozen pending divorce proceedings. Marcus's parents refused to bail him out, maintaining their position that he needed to face consequences. He spent 3 days in jail before a distant aunt he barely knew posted bail, and even then it came with conditions and a payment plan. The restraining order was made permanent. Marcus was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Elena, her home, or her business. He violated it once, showing up drunk at her catering kitchen, and spent another week in jail. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly straightforward. With audio evidence of abuse, documented financial fraud, proof of adultery, and criminal charges pending, Marcus's lawyer advised him to accept Elena's terms. He had no leverage, no credibility, and no defense. Elena was awarded the house, her car, full control of her business, and rights to any remaining joint assets once Marcus's debts were paid. Marcus was ordered to pay restitution for all the money he had stolen, plus alimony for 3 years. His wages would be garnished from any future employment until every debt was satisfied. Thompson Construction's lawsuit against Marcus resulted in a judgment of $23,000 plus legal fees and interest. Frank Thompson made it clear the family would pursue every legal avenue to recover what was stolen. The criminal case went to trial. Marcus's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea bargain, but the prosecution, armed with overwhelming evidence, wasn't interested in being lenient. Marcus was convicted of embezzlement and fraud. The domestic violence charge resulted in a separate conviction. He was sentenced to 18 months in jail, 3 years probation, mandatory anger management courses, and court-ordered treatment for gambling addiction. His criminal record would follow him for the rest of his life. The social consequences were equally devastating. The story spread through Minneapolis social circles like wildfire. Marcus Thompson, the charming project manager, was exposed as an abuser, a thief, and a con artist. Friends who had defended him fell silent. Professional contacts cut ties. His reputation was destroyed beyond repair. 6 months after that memorable breakfast, Elena stood in the kitchen of her newly expanded catering business, teaching a baking class to a group of women from the local domestic violence shelter. It was something she did twice a month now, using her skills to help survivors find independence and confidence. Her business was thriving. After the story of her situation became public, Elena received an outpouring of support from the community. High-profile clients sought her out specifically because they admired her courage. Her calendar was booked solid for months. She had also become an advocate for domestic violence awareness, speaking at events and sharing her story to help other women recognize the signs of abuse. She partnered with local shelters, teaching free cooking classes and helping survivors develop job skills. Financially, Elena had recovered completely. The court-ordered restitution meant Marcus's wages were garnished, slowly repaying what he had stolen. Her credit score was being repaired through fraud claims and dispute processes. Her business income had increased significantly, and she was finally able to save money without worrying about someone else spending it. Diana Reeves, her lawyer and best friend, stopped by the catering kitchen one afternoon with news. Marcus applied for a job at a marketing firm last week. The hiring manager Googled his name during the interview. And, Elena asked, though she could guess the answer, the video of your confrontation that Jason's wife posted on social media was the first search result. 3 million views now. He didn't get the job. Elena should have felt guilty, but she didn't. Marcus had created his own reputation through his choices. The consequences were his to bear. There's more, Diana continued. A woman named Jennifer called my office yesterday. She was one of the other women Marcus was seeing from the dating apps. She saw the news coverage of his trial and realized he had scammed her too. He borrowed $12,000 from her, claiming it was for a business investment. She wants to file charges. Is she going to? Already did. Marcus now has another fraud charge pending. He's looking at additional jail time. That evening, Elena locked up her catering kitchen and drove to her house, the beautiful home that was now solely hers. She had redecorated, removing every trace of Marcus and filling it with things that reflected her taste, her personality, her independence. As she made herself dinner in the kitchen where Marcus had once thrown plates and grabbed her face, Elena reflected on how much had changed. She was no longer the woman who made excuses for abuse, who ignored red flags, who sacrificed her own well-being for someone else's comfort. Her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but she answered it anyway. Elena? This is Sasha Martinez. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. Of course, Sasha. How are you? I'm doing well, actually. I wanted to thank you again for exposing Marcus's lies. I've been in therapy, working through the betrayal, and my therapist suggested I might find closure by talking to you. They talked for over an hour. Sasha had moved forward with her life, more cautious now but also stronger. She had started a blog about her experience, helping other women recognize the warning signs of dating someone who's lying about their relationship status. I also wanted to tell you, Sasha said, that I testified against Marcus in court. When the prosecutor asked if I'd be willing to share my experience, I said yes. I wanted him to face consequences for what he did to both of us. Thank you, Elena said. That took courage. I learned from you, Sasha replied. The way you handled that breakfast, the way you made sure everyone saw the truth, it inspired me to stop hiding what happened. You turned your pain into power. After they hung up, Elena sat on her back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. She thought about that morning 6 months ago, standing in her bathroom at 3 a.m., staring at her bruised face, planning what would become the most important breakfast she ever served. She thought about Marcus, currently serving his jail sentence, his reputation destroyed, his future limited by criminal convictions and garnished wages. She thought about the family that had disowned him, the career that was over, the relationship built on lies that had crumbled. But mostly, Elena thought about herself, about the woman who had found the courage to expose the truth, who had protected another woman from the same lies, who had turned her victimization into advocacy, who had built something beautiful from the ashes of a destroyed marriage. A few weeks later, Elena was featured in a local magazine article about domestic violence survivors who became advocates. The article included photos of her catering business, interviews with women she had helped through her shelter programs, and testimonials from clients who admired her strength. At the end of the article, the reporter asked Elena what she would say to other women in similar situations. "I would tell them that if someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time," Elena said. "Don't make excuses. Don't explain away the red flags. Don't convince yourself it will get better if you just try harder. Document everything because evidence is power. Build your support network before you think you'll need it. And remember that you deserve better than someone who hurts you, steals from you, or lies to you." "What about revenge?" the reporter asked. "Some people might say what you did was vindictive." "I didn't want revenge," Elena corrected. "I wanted justice. I wanted accountability. I wanted truth. Marcus spent years lying to everyone, and I made sure the truth was finally visible. That's not revenge. That's consequences." "And how do you feel now?" "Free," Elena answered immediately. "For the first time in 9 years, every decision I make is mine alone. Every dollar I earn belongs to me. Every choice about my future is based on what I want, not what someone else expects. That's not revenge. That's recovery." The article ended with information about domestic violence resources and a quote from Elena that would be shared thousands of times on social media. "The best revenge isn't destroying someone's life. It's building a better one for yourself." 1 year after that fateful breakfast, Elena received an invitation to speak at a national domestic violence awareness conference. She accepted, sharing her story with an audience of survivors, advocates, and professionals who worked in the field. She talked about the warning signs she had ignored, the excuses she had made, the gradual erosion of her self-worth. She talked about the night Marcus bruised her face, the moment she finally saw clearly, the decision to stop being a victim and start being a survivor. And she talked about the breakfast, about strategically exposing the truth to everyone who had enabled Marcus's behavior, about making sure consequences finally arrived. "Some people ask me if I regret how publicly I handled it," Elena told the audience. "They ask if I wish I'd dealt with it privately, quietly, without embarrassing my ex-husband in front of his family. And my answer is always no. Marcus made his abuse, his theft, his lies as public as possible. He just made sure I was the only one who couldn't see the full picture. I didn't embarrass him. I revealed him. There's a difference." After her speech, dozens of women approached her, sharing their own stories, asking for advice, thanking her for her courage. Many of them were still in abusive situations trying to find the strength to leave. Others were survivors like her, rebuilding their lives piece by piece. One woman in particular stood out, a young mother with 2 children who looked exhausted and scared. "I don't know how to leave," she whispered. "I don't have money saved. He controls all our accounts. I'm afraid of what he'll do if I try." Elena gave her Diana's card, connected her with shelter resources, and shared the most important lesson she had learned. Start documenting everything now. Take photos, save messages, record conversations if it's legal in your state. Build your evidence before you need it. And remember, leaving isn't the dangerous part, staying is. As Elena drove home from the conference, she received a text from an unknown number. It was Marcus somehow getting around the no-contact order through a new phone number. "I'm out of jail. I've completed my treatment. I'm a different person now. Can we talk?" Elena deleted the message without responding. She forwarded the number to Diana, who would report the restraining order violation. Then she blocked it and continued driving. Marcus could claim he was different, but Elena knew better. Real change took years of sustained effort, not months of court-mandated treatment. And regardless of whether Marcus had changed, Elena had no interest in reconnecting. That chapter of her life was closed. She had moved forward in ways Marcus would never understand. Her business now had 3 locations throughout Minneapolis. She employed 15 people, many of them domestic violence survivors she had mentored. She had purchased the building where her original catering kitchen was located. She was financially secure, professionally successful, and personally fulfilled. And she had started dating again carefully and slowly. His name was David, and he was Frank Thompson's business partner, someone Elena had met several times over the years at company events. He had reached out 6 months after her divorce was final, asking if she'd be interested in getting coffee sometime. No pressure, no expectations. David was patient with her trust issues, understanding about her need to move slowly, supportive of her business goals. Unlike Marcus, who had seen her success as competition, David celebrated her achievements and encouraged her ambitions. He was honest about his finances, transparent about his past divorce, and respectful of her boundaries. They had been dating for 4 months, and Elena was beginning to believe she could trust again. She was beginning to imagine a future that included partnership without pain, companionship without control, love without lies. One evening, David took her to dinner at an upscale restaurant. As they were finishing dessert, he reached across the table and took her hand. "Elena, I know you've been through hell. I know you're still healing. I know you have every reason to be cautious about trusting someone new. But I want you to know that I see you, the real you, the strong, talented, courageous woman you are. And I'm not going anywhere." Elena felt tears in her eyes, but they were good tears, healing tears. "Thank you for being patient with me." "You're worth the patience," David said simply. "You're worth everything." As they left the restaurant, Elena thought about Marcus, wherever he was, dealing with the consequences of his choices. She thought about the breakfast that had changed everything, the moment she had chosen truth over comfort, justice over silence. And she realized that the best revenge really wasn't what she had done to Marcus at all. The best revenge was this: living a beautiful, successful, joy-filled life without him. The best revenge was being happy, being free, being herself without apology or fear. 2 years after the breakfast, Elena stood in front of the mirror in her beautiful home, getting ready for an event. But this time, there were no bruises to hide. This time, her reflection showed a woman who was confident, successful, and genuinely happy. She was being honored at the annual gala for the Minneapolis Domestic Violence Coalition, receiving an award for her advocacy work and her contributions to helping survivors rebuild their lives. Her catering company was providing the food for the event, a full-circle moment that wasn't lost on her. As she applied her makeup, Elena thought about the woman she had been 2 years ago, staring at her bruised face at 3 in the morning, planning her escape. That woman had been scared but determined, broken but not defeated. The woman in the mirror now was healed, whole, and powerful in ways that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with recovery. The doorbell rang. David was picking her up for the gala, looking handsome in his tuxedo, holding flowers, treating her with the respect and care she deserved. "You look beautiful," he said. "I feel beautiful," Elena replied, and she meant it. At the gala, Elena delivered a speech about her journey from victim to survivor to advocate. She talked about the importance of believing women, supporting survivors, and holding abusers accountable. She talked about the power of truth, the necessity of consequences, and the possibility of healing. And she ended with the story of the breakfast, the morning she served her abusive husband the truth instead of excuses, exposure instead of enabling, consequences instead of forgiveness he hadn't earned. "That breakfast was the last meal I ever made for someone who didn't value me," Elena told the audience. "Now I use my skills to feed people who are hungry for hope, nourishment for their bodies and their spirits. I teach survivors how to support themselves, how to build independence, how to create lives they don't need to escape from. And every time I serve a meal, every time I teach a class, every time I help someone find their courage, I'm reminded that the best revenge is a life well lived." The audience gave her a standing ovation. Later that evening, as she mingled with other advocates, survivors, and supporters, a young woman approached her nervously. "Mrs. Thompson, I saw you speak at the conference last year. Your story gave me the courage to leave my abusive husband. I documented everything like you said. I built my evidence. I exposed his lies. And now I'm free, just like you. Elena hugged her, feeling the full circle of pain transformed into purpose. I'm so proud of you. What are you doing now? I'm in culinary school, the woman said, smiling through tears. I want to be a chef like you. I want to use food to help people the way you do. As Elena drove home that night, with David beside her and a future full of possibilities ahead of her, she thought about Marcus one last time. She didn't hate him anymore. She didn't love him. She didn't fear him. She simply didn't think about him at all. Except in moments like this when his absence from her life felt like the greatest gift she'd ever received. Marcus Thompson, wherever he was, whatever he was doing, had become irrelevant to her story. He was the catalyst for her transformation, but he wasn't the hero. She was. Elena Rodriguez Thompson had served her husband a breakfast he never expected, and in doing so, she had served herself freedom, justice, and a future worth living. And that, she realized as she unlocked her front door and stepped into her beautiful home, was the best revenge of all.